But I'm delighted to welcome and introduce Monica Förster. Congratulations to you as well. You were awarded, I think it was on Tuesday night, the El Deco Sweden Design...
Monday
night. Designer of the Year by El Deco. So big congratulations there. This morning we had a lady from Beckham's College, where you first started to study. And I think there you were studying initially advertising, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's correct.
Advertising and I think graphics. And how did you get into product design? How did you make that jump?
I think it was more like this. When I started Beckmans really early on, and we started I started school in '92.
Okay.
And this was the first year of the product development, or the product and sort of furniture department started at Beckmans. So I was in the middle of starting either at that sort of department or at the graphic design department. And
which was already established.
Which was very established, of course, and which is the department where Beckmans is really well known. So I kind of figured that, okay, when you start a new course, it's probably going to have some so-called baby diseases. I don't know how you say that in English.
Yeah, teething problems.
Yes, sort of starting up problems. So I thought that, maybe it's better to do the graphic design course, and then I will do it my way. So that's sort of how I did it. And I think that's sort of, this was '92, and I think I sort of continued doing things like that.
But that sounds quite a safety first approach. Rather than taking a chance on this course that had only just started, you went for something that was already established and for which they were famous for, and yet that doesn't seem to me to be the way your work has evolved.
Not really, actually.
My way.
Yeah, but no, I think you see it the wrong way, maybe, because what I actually did was, it was a more strategic decision, because I was like, okay, let's go into the graphic design department. But then what I did was I didn't do one single graphic design assignment for 3 years. I did product design.
How did you manage to do that with your lecturers and things?
Exactly. Now you get it. That's my point.
So were you a painful student? Were you causing trouble, do you think, in this?
Probably I was, because I was like doing lots of different experiments, and I was always coming, into the class with something I built instead of something that was flat. So
3-dimensional rather than 2-dimensional.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I actually got a scholarship from Beckmans when I went at the final exam. So I think I must have done some kind of things right. I don't know what. But
So you did study and do the graphic design course, and then you went on to do the product design course after that.
Yes.
With a scholarship. So you must have hit some of the right buttons, or.
I did do a lot of experiments, but I think really Beckmans is the kind of school, that is all about ideas. And I think that is what I learned from being in that school. And this is how I work today. Still, I really work very strongly with ideas and concepts. And that is something that really stuck to me from being in that school.
And well, that's very interesting, because the session that we've just had, and part of the design talks, the theme of design talks this year is about tales of creativity. How do you keep those ideas fresh and new? Because this is something we've just discussed on the previous session.
Well, I don't know. It's a difficult question. I mean, it's like, where do all the ideas come from? It's like, I think that
we had the answer to that one. It's everywhere. I get inspired by everything.
Yeah,
but, I mean,
exactly.
keeping it fresh, how do you do that?
But I think it's not, there isn't like an A to, Z list to that. I think it's not like something a person can just write down. I think it's like a really personal thing. And if you would ask me, I would give you one answer, which I will very soon. And if there would be another designer sitting beside me, you would get another answer. Because I think that, sometimes we forget that also what we are doing is very based on a person. The way that we achieve things, or the way that we move forward. It's really personalized, I think. I mean, it is really much, the everyday life, and but also I think it's about that I'm basically a very curious person. So it's not anything that I really have to work for. It's in me. I like meetings with people, and I actually like it doesn't always have to be the glamorous part. I mean, I can really enjoy talking to people in the factory, you know, and to get their side of stories, or I can even enjoy being at a dinner and being beside a person who is like an expert on nails, for example, because there is like a universe in that as well. I'm just that kind of person, and I really enjoy to learn new things.
So being curious, asking questions all the time.
Absolutely.
I guess exactly what we heard from Ilse Crawford earlier about this whole idea of, you know, keep questioning. They call it in their office question time. I mean, is there a process that you have in your studio now? How many are you in your studio?
We're between 4 and 5 people.
Total?
Total,
okay.
Yes.
So you have a really sort of very strong hand on all the projects and what have you. Okay,
yes,
that's very interesting.
I do.
And is there a process for developing a product? You design these handbags, for example.
Yes.
What is the process? Describe the process for a new creation.
No, I was talking about before, I think for me it's really all about ideas, and I think that is really, really important. Also, we don't say yes to all you know, all the asks about assignments. I pick the assignments quite carefully, and
do you not think you should just double the size of your team, and then you could take a few more assignments on and wouldn't have to be so selective?
Well, I mean, of course, it has sometimes. Of course, it could be interesting to do that as well. But I think what is even more interesting is that if you talk to designers around the world that has a similar way of working as me, a friend of mine, Konstantin Dittrich, for example, he had this really, really wonderful exhibition at the Architecture and Design Museum, and he said that there are only 7 people in his office, and it's like...
Who is this?
Konstantin Dittrich.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. And I mean, it's who also works in kind of a similar way. I mean, we don't work with the interior. We're like an industrial design. I mean, we have different legs. We have one leg that is industrial design, which is like doing digging machines and sort of more heavier...
You're designing digging machines?
Yes, we have done that actually.
Well, I saw this on the web on your website when I started my research, and I thought I didn't know what that was. I thought maybe it was a kid's toy or something. And then you're also designing handbags. These are a slightly different scale, material, completely different end user. How do you deal with that? Again, let's deal with the process first.
Yeah, exactly. It's coming back to that, and you know, the last year. I mean, this was, of course, it was a concept digging machine. It was a collaboration with the Volvo Construction Equipment, but it was still the first time they had worked with a product designer from the outside. So but. It is possible to work with both digging machines and handbags, for example, if you work with ideas and in the process sort of to how can you say? I mean, we are a team, and we do, of course, a lot of research, and we really, you know, work together in kind of getting these ideas. And
your team of 4 or 5 people.
Yes, exactly, and it's quite unprestigious. It's not that the idea has to come from me. It could come from anyone. I mean, of course, I'm like the person. I mean, I'm like the creative director, of course. So maybe I'm like the leader of the team, of course.
Someone's got to make a decision at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But still, I feel that it's a kind of a flat organization.
How do you encourage that? We talked about this on the previous panel. How do you encourage these guys to come and work with you in the first place when it's your name above the door and it's all about you, and you're having interviews every half an hour?
Yeah.
How do you attract the talent in the first place? And keep them?
Maybe that's a question for them, really. But there is really a lot of people that are applying to the studio, and they come from all over the world. And I think I met some amazing people, and we have a great team now. We have. I mean,
I'm guessing you're selective with your clients. I'm pretty sure you're very selective with people who work with you or for you.
Yeah. But the point is really that the team is from all over the world. It's like now we have like France, Spain, Italy, and Sweden. And I think that, I mean, our studio also work all over the world. I mean, it's an international studio, and the way I see it, I think that people have, you know, different references depending on where you grew up. And I think that really adds something to the studio and also to the clients that we work for.
Different ideas, different questions.
Yeah, exactly. And also questioning different things.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll come on to working with some of the manufacturers in a moment, and the different people you have worked with. Would you say we also discussed this idea of house style? I'll ask you directly the question, do you have a house style? Is there a Monica Förster stamp?
Yes and no. Again, it's like I said. For me, it's all about the ideas, and then like the shape, the function, sometimes the color, the material. It all sort of adapts to the idea to strengthen and lift it up. But so I feel that if you would go in, which you probably have done, to look at my homepage, you would see many different things.
Sure, it's amazing.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think that there is some kind of a similar expression. At least I hope so. And
well, I think Konstantin Grigek, the German, would probably say there's a red thread to the way he does his work.
Yes.
I can't. I would be surprised to find a red thread between the Volvo digger and the handbags. Maybe in the process.
Not really, no. Because if you would look at the design, actually, I think you would recognize it. And it's quite interesting because I've actually received new commissions many times by producers who have just walked around in the fair, and they've been like, I like that table. And then, who did that? And oh, it's Monica Förster. And then they walked a little bit more, and it's like, I like that chair. And who did that? Monica Förster. So first they didn't select me for the name, they selected me for my work.
For the look. So
and I think that's an honor, actually. I'm very happy.
To be recognized
for my work.
For the style.
Exactly.
The style you have. I mean, yeah, the work definitely, but the style, and that's what's attracting people, that's what's driving new business for you, because you have the Monica Förster style. How would you describe that? I look at some of the products and see sort of very human, feminine almost, soft lines. You tell me, what do you think the defining characteristics of your work?
I think that it's for sure following up on a Scandinavian tradition, which we are quite known for here, and it's more like a softer type of minimalism. So I would like to see my studio within that heritage for sure, but I would like to see us also to represent like an innovative part.
It's funny, tomorrow there's another panel discussion that I'm looking at Nordic design, and I've called this one Same, because and is Nordic design in need of a reboot because it looks the same. Do you want to just perpetuate that sameness? Or are you I don't think so, but that's what it seems and sounds like you're saying. I want to be part of the heritage of this sort of grand Nordic design.
Well, I don't think I said I want to be a part. I think I said I think I am a part of it, and it's not something that I strive against. It's something that is a part of my heritage, and
so you're not denying it. You're not trying to
I'm not denying it.
Japanese design style.
No, because I think that it's something I would like to embrace, but I would still like to point out that, I mean, where we started was that saying that I am still a person that goes my own way very much. And I think that hasn't changed, and I think that's something I will do in the future as well.
So where do you think that way might take you in the next years? Staying within this Nordic heritage idea, or moving it some steps forward or sideways, and in what way?
I don't think it's so much about the Nordic ideas, because I think the heritage, because I can't escape it. I was born here. This is a part of me, and I think that's how it is for everyone. But then you can sort of approach it in different ways. And And we don't work with trends in my studio. I think we might have done things that have started trends, but it wasn't the meaning from the beginning. It wasn't like, oh, now this material is trendy, let's use it. It was more about communicating something else. And so with saying that, I mean that I would like to make to sort of that the things that we do in the studio that they have a long life. So, I mean, when I look back to what I did when I started, which is now 20 years ago, I'm still proud of that. I feel that it's not like I can say that, oh, this was 1995.
Wasn't
so
silicon
dated, I don't want to look at it. It feels like, you know, I can still live with it. I can, you know, it's still a part of me. And this is how I would like to continue to work.
Okay.
But I think that we are in a really, really interesting moment now in design, and that there is like a lot of things happening, a lot of, you know, with the whole digital thing going on, and I'm sure that we will embrace that as well as being part of that, because we very much also work with sort of new technologies, new materials, and so on.
Well, let's talk about that. Silicon,
Okay.
the soft lamp, was something I think came in 1996,
Yes.
which sort of was quite a breakthrough moment for you.
And before that, I made a glow-in-the-dark toilet seat.
Oh, okay.
So
As you do, yes, always essential.
So I mean, that was sort of how everything started, and I followed.
Doing it your way.
Yeah, and I followed. That was my examination project from school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the one that got you the
scholarship? Yes,
okay, so.
it was. Believe it or not.
All right. But
and I followed up with an inflatable room.
Yes,
so,
the cloud.
Yeah.
Okay. Also quite radical and game-changing. You talk about this curiosity for new materials. How do you understand the capabilities? You're doing some stuff with Dekton. Tell us what Dekton is for a start, and how did you discover it, and what are you doing with it?
I think that when I've spoken about this project earlier, I've started with this thing with that. I think it's really, really interesting what's going on with materials right now. I mean, of course, this is something that a movement, or how to explain it, that we've been a part of for a long time. But still, I think that there was a material called grafen, and which the founders of this material got the Nobel Prize.
Okay.
And this was, I don't know, maybe a few years, maybe like last year or something. Yeah, it was last year, wasn't it?
Grafen?
Grafen.
Grafen,
yes.
okay. What is that?
It's like it's probably going to revolutionize our future, because they've just begun to investigate what this can do, but it's super quick in transporting electricity, for example, and it's opening up things like this. And why do I bring this up? Because I think it's a good example of the importance of materials and what we are.
So it's like a copper wire, but you can touch it, presumably don't kill yourself.
No, I think it's actually like a carbon material,
okay.
but that they have. They've changed an atom. I can't exactly explain. I don't want to get into it because I'm probably wrong. But anyway, my point was that this Dekton material, I think it's really interesting.
So now we're talking about Dekton, okay?
Yes, now we're talking about Dekton.
Which is a different product altogether.
We've left the Nobel Prize here now.
Right.
But it is really interesting because it's also high-tech material.
And so describe Dekton to us. What does Dekton do, or what do you do with Dekton?
Yes. So we were asked by a company called Bianchi Cycles and Cafe, which is a super nice place.
Close to my heart. I love cycling. I know it.
You know what it is,
yeah.
then?
Well,
it's like
a
fantastic Italian brand. And so they have a really great place in the middle of Stockholm. If you haven't been, you have to go, because it's like completely crowded all the time with people, and they have great food. It's a very popular place.
It's a bike shop and cafe, isn't it?
And besides that, we have an installation there, so it's also a good reason to go.
Installation of Dekton.
With Dekton.
Go on, tell us what it is.
Yeah.
Go on, what is Dekton?
So it's sort of it's a crushed mountains, so crushed minerals. Crushed, do you say
Crushed,
that?
yeah, crushed.
And then they crush the minerals, and then it's like put under really, really strong pressure.
Okay.
They describe it like taking 2 Eiffel Towers.
2 Eiffel Towers.
Two
and putting
Eiffel
on,
Towers
and
and putting it on top. So there is no glue and no,
bad stuff.
Exactly in it. It's just completely compressed by pressure.
So it's a reconstituted stone, effectively, like a terrazzo almost.
Exactly.
Made of waste marble or whatever.
Really good explanation there. So, and what happens is that it becomes very, very resistant to both heat and cold. I mean, if you would compare it to a normal stone, like marble, for example, if you would put something really cold on the marble, and then you would put something very hot on the side, it would just crack.
Yep.
This is not at all the case with this material. And we've done an installation there, a fire installation on the terrace.
At the cafe?
At the cafe,
okay,
exactly.
so made from this material, so presumably it's freezing cold in the Swedish night,
yes.
and yet you can also have a candle or something burning inside, and this is hot, and it's hot.
And it works really, really well. So it's a very interesting material.
And you can mold it in any shape you want?
No, it's not really possible to mold it. It's made by thin, it's like a layer.
Layer system, okay.
Layers, yes.
Okay. Okay, so again, new materials, one of the things I think that you're quite renowned for, taking on and trying out new stuff, experimenting with new things, new ideas. And developing that, I mean, one of the silicon lamp, I understand you sort of actually fabricated that and experimented on that in your own kitchen way back when.
I did, yes.
Is that very much, are you still doing that? Is that the process you operate with in terms of, or are you doing 3D modeling and prototyping? I mean, how do you work? How do you work with these new materials? I
mean, I still do lots of experimenting in my kitchen, but it's more about food.
Not again. We had food earlier as well. Okay.
No, but of course not. It's I mean, in the studio we do that, yes, because I think it's very, very important to keep the creativity in the studio. But of course, we do. I would say that the studio goes between a 3D printer and working with the hand. So we combine these things.
And working with the hand, you mean making models?
Making models, for example, or testing out things with the hand. And maybe then we combine that with parts of the 3D printer and we just put it together. But it's still absolutely not, just going into the computer, CADing it, and then printing it out. Because I really believe in the process of, of making, that if you, in the making, you can, and also in maybe sometimes the mistakes that comes up when you're making things, there can be some really interesting things happening. And then that...
Have you got an example of that, a mistake that's led you on to something else?
Probably many, but none that I can think of right now.
Or that you want to share with us.
But it happens all the time, I promise you.
Talking, your creative director there, I mean, that sounds like you have quite some control over the process. Do you find you have the same level of ownership of the design when you're dealing with some of the bigger companies that you work for, Capellini, Poltrona Frau? Or do you find that they're dumbing down your designs and saying, that doesn't work, you have to change this, you can't do it like this, and you end up having to sort of really compromise on your design, your my way? How do you feel? Do you have that experience, or are you just saying, it's my way, or I'm not working with you? How do you work with these big guys?
I think that, it's rather the other way around, that if you work with really, really good clients, it's such a respect. I mean, I started to work with Poltrona Frau when I was 35. And I mean that in their world, that's like ridiculously young, because like you're young and promising in that company until you're like 45,
I like that.
I do too, actually. So, I mean, I have to say that I'm always met with a tremendous respect. There is like, and especially in Italy with all these fantastic companies, I think they have a tradition of that since in the history of the country and also of the company, that there is a respect. And I think if there is a respect from both sides, the respect for the designer, and also respect for the company, together it's possible to achieve some really, really great things. And I think that is their experience. And I think I don't think I have to compromise at all, which is fantastic. I mean,
I think you're very lucky. I talk to a lot of young designers who are just starting out and they're not even, they're 25 and trying to get their stuff done. They get beaten up all the time because the 50-year-old production guy says you can't do that. Doesn't work. So they have to go back and change it.
Well, I mean, of course, that's a way of the product development part, which you have to be. I mean, if you're going to do a one-off, you can do whatever you want to do. But of course, if you have to change your thing a lot, that means that you haven't been aware of how things was going to be produced from the beginning. I mean, if you work as a professional, then of course you have to know that, are you going to injection mold this, or are you going to hand carve it, or are you going to make something out of leather? Or
so perhaps there's the discussion thing you talked about earlier on, understanding how the guys
process
their processes to work within the processes to maximize what you can make them do, stretch them.
I think that part is like, it's a natural part of being a designer. I mean, that's the way you work if you're a professional. But I would say that what is interesting is that even though that we are very aware of the different sort of techniques and sometimes limitations, I always try to push my producers. I mean, maybe, for example, then I can give you an example. It's like I was asked to make cutlery, for example, for a Swedish fantastic company called Gensa, which is in more or less all the Swedish people's home. It's like a
cutlery, nice.
Cutlery, exactly. They very rarely make new cutlery, but I was asked to do that, and they were like, "Could you make new steel cutlery?" And I was more like, yes, I will do that. I think it would be nice, but I would also like to do black cutlery. And
can't do black.
Yes, that's what they said actually, but it's just that you can't always do what the producer says to you. I mean, again.
But this sounds great. This sounds like this is the established designer walking into the place. You asked me if you want me to work with you, I'll tell you what I want, and if you don't, then we won't do it. Have you got some advice for some younger designers? I mean, how do you break into that? How do you establish yourself? How do you get something produced in the tens of thousands so you then have a chance 10 years later to walk in and say it's my way or no way?
I think that you need to find, first of all, I mean, of course, I will give the advice, but first of all, it's very important to point out that there isn't this list so that if you go through these points, you will succeed, because it is about the person. I mean, all the collaborations, everything, even though that we talk about, the huge companies and Poltrona Frau and the conglomerates and all of that, these conglomerates and huge companies are still... I mean, it consists of human beings. All the collaborations that we do are between human beings, and you need to find a way to get along. You need to find a way to... As
a young designer, you need to find the right person who's going to make the decision, surely.
Yes, that is one thing, but you also need to understand how to work with different cultures. Because in one culture, you can do it like this. Another culture, you have to do this. But for me, and I do this all the time. Changing around. For me, and you have to understand how to do that, because then it's possible to achieve your goal, I think. At least that's how I do it.
And it's interesting, some of the aspects that were discussed this morning in the session with regard to the design schools, how they basically try and pass on that sort of information as to how you should price yourself and how you should approach different manufacturers. Because I'm pretty sure the Swedish manufacturers are more like this, and your Italians are a bit more like that, perhaps. I'm just guessing.
I think you're right.
You ever thought of doing your own production? I mean, like Tom Dixon sort of said, okay, fine, I'll go and do my own stuff and set up my own tooling and what have you. Is that something that appeals to you? So you can hopefully cut down that whole process, and you will then really be doing it your way?
I think that's absolutely one interesting way. So we'll see what will happen with that.
Okay, and you have to come back next year and find out if there's an answer to that question. I've got a few notes here, a few words: ideas, materials, and I think most importantly, Monica Förster. She's doing it her way. Thank you very much indeed, Monica. Thank you.
Thank you very much.